Hi everybody, my name is Kendall Servino. I am a third year biology student here at UNLV, and today I will be presenting my thesis completed for the UNLV Honors College thesis program called Human Touch Storytelling Through Anatomy. So before I present, I'd like to give a big thank you to my committee members. Without all of them, I could not have done this project, and I'd also like to thank the UNLV Office of Undergraduate Research for their continual support through funding. So, in my thesis, I explored the intersection between art and science, and particularly how the two can overlap and can be collaborative in each other's disciplines. So, in my study, I was interested in incorporating both science and art to understand how humans perceive themselves, and not only the human body, but specifically the hand. Um, I find the hand to be a very interesting subject because of its use in everyday life, and I think that there is a lot of identity that can be associated with our hands. So, through grounded theory, which is a series of guidelines used in qualitative analyses often, I conducted a series of conversational interviews. And I ended up interviewing students and faculty around campus. And essentially, the purpose of these conversational interviews were to gather stories from the interviewees' um, life based on the hand. So my initial question stem, what do you use your hands for, was a diving board of sorts to get into how each participant views their hands. And through a series of organic follow-up questions, we were able really to get down to a story in which each participant kind of um, thought back on a childhood memory or even something present that they use their hands for in everyday life. So, the following that you see is a compilation of the interviews. These are some of the examples. And what was really interesting at the end of my interviews was that I had a diverse array of responses. So, these are essentially one word summaries of each interview, and it was a little bit overwhelming because every interview response had a different theme, and there wasn't really much overlap between any two interviews. And it really goes to show the diversity of human life that can be associated with something as mundane or something as easily overlooked as the human hand. So, from this data set, I wanted to reflect these conversational interviews onto a series of paintings. And from this list, I ended up picking 5 that I found were the most compelling or the most inspiring for the paintings, which I then wanted to create based off of these responses. So, the following now is an art museum styled kind of exhibit of how I would have displayed my paintings had I presented them in person at this research conference or several other presentations which I had planned on attending this semester. So, this is my abstract. It touches upon grounded theory, conversational interviews, as well as the importance of visual storytelling, which I will elaborate more on in the discussion. But this also doubles as an artist statement, which you often see at a museum that kind of encompasses the artist's intentions and the process. So now this gets into the paintings, my results. The title of my painting is in the upper left-hand corner, and the quotes that follow are my favorite quotes extracted from the conversational interviews, which really inspire the paintings that ended up following. So the first one is history. From these quotes, I was able to create this painting, which shows the development and progress throughout one's lifetime. So, starting from the left, we have this small child's hand, and then this hand as it grows into adulthood, and then to the far right, we have the hand in the later stages of life. And as we can see here in the far left in the child's hand, the palm is kind of closed, and then as we move to the right, the hands open up into an open palm. And I kind of wanted this to represent opening up and accepting all that life has to offer and all that we can offer in life. So the next one is machine. I got some really good content from a kinesiology professor who essentially likened the hand to an extension of the brain, which I thought was really unique and something that was reliant upon her field of study. And I thought it was a pretty good example of how um, our backgrounds and field of study and even our view of life can affect how we see the hand. So, from this idea of the machine, I ended up painting this painting, which shows the hand in this very sterile, um, very robotic sort of form. So the next one is called human, and the last one, machine, the hand was seen as a um, kind of robotic standpoint. In contrast, this painting shows the hand for its associations with daily life activity and what we use them for. So, this was the painting that I created. It's juxtaposing machine. If you recognize the creation of Adam, painted by Michelangelo on the Sistine Chapel in Rome, that's where I got this inspiration from. But essentially, this one represents the human hand as a very human, very unique sort of appendage that we have compared to other life forms on Earth. The next one is identity. This one shows the hands in relation to livelihood and what people use the hands for in everyday life. And from this, I was able to come up with the inspirations to paint um, this canvas, which shows the hands on the left being used by a surgeon and holding a scalpel, whereas on the right, this one is holding a paintbrush from a painter's point of view. So I thought it was really interesting how hands can be associated with a sense of self identity. The last one is based on human connection and seeing the hands as a way to reach out, either physically or metaphorically, to other human beings. And from this, I was able to paint these two hands locked in an intimate embrace, showing the hands as being a vehicle for us to reach out to others. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the value of transdisciplinary investigations. This overlap is important to me because I think that there is a cultural divide between art and science. And more importantly, I think that collaboration of the two can open up new areas of discussion. For example, I think exploring the utility of presenting scientific findings through art can lead to new teaching styles that can make learning more engaging. And this is actually based off of a nationwide program that was implemented a couple years ago in primary schools called Learning Through the Arts, which puts a creative emphasis on the way scientific concepts are presented and introduced to elementary school students. And what they found is that these new ways of teaching actually promoted higher engagement and retention within these elementary school students. So, on a more general note, I think that art and science, although it may be an unusual way to present typical scientific data, can make science also a bit more inclusive and understandable to more people and thus be able to reach a wider audience. So, thank you for coming to my presentation, and this has been Human Touch Storytelling Through Anatomy.